The baby in my belly kicked lightly, almost as if sensing that I was staring at the massive electronic screen. I stood in the VIP waiting area on the third floor of an elite maternity center in Manhattan, clutching the referral for my routine 5-month pregnancy checkup. The air conditioning was blasting, and I shivered instinctively, wrapping my hands around my noticeably rounded stomach. My appointment was set for 3 p.m. Just yesterday, Alex Caldwell's assistant had sworn up and down that Alex would absolutely carve out the time to be here. Naturally, over the past 5 months, that promise hadn't been kept a single time. "Lily, there are still 2 people ahead of you. You can take a seat and relax for a bit," the receptionist smiled warmly. I nodded. Hardly had I sunk into the plush armchair by the floor-to-ceiling window when a sudden buzz swept through the waiting room. "Look, it's the CEO of Caldwell Enterprises. Oh my God, it's Alex Caldwell. He's getting married. The bride is Vanessa Kensington, the one who just won that huge acting award." The voices washed over me like a tidal wave. I lifted my head. The massive screen covering the opposite wall, which usually played educational videos about pregnancy or clinic ads, was now broadcasting a live entertainment news segment. The shaky camera zoomed in on a dazzlingly white chapel perched on a private estate overlooking the ocean in Malibu. The California sun was so bright it seemed to illuminate the screen from within. A red carpet stretched all the way from the driveway to the chapel doors. On either side stood ushers in matching uniforms. A drone shot swept over the Pacific. Dozens of luxury yachts were anchored in the azure water, reporters with long lens cameras visibly crowding their decks. And then he appeared. Alex Caldwell, wearing a custom-tailored black tuxedo. His posture was straight and honed like a drawn blade. He stood under the archway of the chapel, his profile to the camera. His jawline was tense. The ocean breeze ruffled his dark hair, but he didn't bother fixing it. He merely lifted his wrist to check his watch. That gesture was painfully familiar to me. It was impatience, barely contained. "Alex is just incredibly handsome today," sighed a young pregnant woman nearby, glued to her phone. "I heard this wedding cost 8 figures, her friend whispered back. "Vanessa's dress is custom French couture. The veil alone is 60 feet long. And forget the dress. Look at the flowers. Those are imported Ecuadorian roses. Flown in this morning on a private jet." My nails dug into my palms. The camera moved inside the chapel. The organ music, slightly distorted by the cheap TV speakers, sounded a bit hollow, but the wedding march was unmistakable. The pews were packed. I recognized several faces that frequently graced the covers of Forbes. Evelyn Caldwell, his mother, sat in the front row, wearing a strict dark plum suit. Not a single hair was out of place. She was smiling. I had seen that smile countless times in their Upper East Side penthouse regal. Proper, but utterly devoid of warmth. Then came the bride. Vanessa Kensington, holding her father's arm, walked slowly down the aisle. The dress was truly breathtaking. Cascades of lace and diamond dust sparkled blindingly in the light. Her veil hid most of her face, but you could see the corners of her nude-painted lips turned up in a meticulously calculated smile. She reached Alex. The priest began the vows. The scrolling ticker at the bottom of the screen pierced me like a knife. Live. Wedding of Caldwell Enterprises. CEO Alex Caldwell and Hollywood queen Vanessa Kensington. The wedding of the century. Rumor has it, Vanessa is 2 months pregnant. Double the joy. A sharp, violent cramp suddenly seized my abdomen. This wasn't the baby kicking. These were contractions. Mild, but enough to make me double over and lean heavily on the coffee table next to me. "Lily, are you okay?" A nurse rushed over. I shook my head, struggling to catch my breath. "I'm fine, just a little stuffy in here," but my eyes remained glued to the screen. The priest's voice echoed from the speakers. "Alex, do you take Vanessa to be your lawfully wedded wife, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" The entire waiting room went dead silent. Everyone held their breath, waiting for his answer. The camera zoomed in on Alex's face. A muscle in his jaw twitched. Then his deep, crisp voice rang through the microphone. "I do. Vanessa, do you?" "I do!" Vanessa's voice was as sweet as honey. She didn't even wait for the priest to finish. Cheers erupted from the screen. Confetti and rose petals rained down. Alex lifted Vanessa's veil, leaned in, and kissed her. The camera pushed in close. You could clearly see his eyes closed, his eyelashes casting shadows on his cheeks. He kissed her for a long time. So long that someone in the waiting room actually started clapping. So long that the referral slip in my hand grew damp with sweat, its edges crumpled. The nurse gently touched my shoulder. "Lily, it's your turn. Dr. Patel is waiting for you in room 2. I turned to her. Everything blurred before my eyes. "Okay," I heard my own voice say, surprisingly steady. "I'm coming." As I stood up, my legs threatened to give out. I leaned on the back of the chair, took a deep breath, and slowly, step by step, walked toward the examination room. Behind me, the ecstatic cheers from the screen mixed with the anchor's excited voice. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's raise a glass to the newlyweds." The clinic door clicked shut behind me, and the world grew twice as quiet. Dr. Patel was a specialist hired specifically by the Caldwell family. She was in her 50s, wearing gold-rimmed glasses. She smiled and pointed to the examination table. "Lily, you're here. Alex isn't with you today?" I silently handed her the referral. She took it, scanning the notes. "Last time you had a low-lying placenta. Let's take a closer look today and see if it's moved up. Don't worry, it's very common in early pregnancy." Cold ultrasound gel spread across my belly. The probe pressed against my skin and glided over it. The monitor lit up. The black and white image flickered a few times before stabilizing. 2 tiny figures curled up, floated in the amniotic fluid. You could see their beating hearts, their little arms and legs. The twins are developing beautifully. Dr. Patel's voice was professionally soothing. "Look, here's the boy, and here's the girl. Oh, look at the little guy kicking his sister." I stared at the screen. 2 tiny humans. My babies, and Alex Caldwell's babies. Legally, he was still my husband. Our marriage certificate was locked in a safe deposit box, though I hadn't seen that piece of paper in almost a year. Evelyn Caldwell had brought up divorce 6 months ago. I had signed the papers, but Alex never added his signature. He claimed he was too busy, that there was no rush, that it would be safer to finalize everything after the babies were born. Safer. What an ironic word. Heartbeats are both excellent. Dr. Patel handed me a few paper towels. "Wipe off, and make sure to get plenty of rest. You look a bit pale. Did you skip lunch?" I slowly sat up, wiping the gel from my stomach. "Dr. Patel," I started, my voice sounding hoarse. "If a pregnant woman experiences extreme emotional stress, does it affect the babies?" She adjusted her glasses. "It depends on the stress. Generally, with a brief, intense emotional spike, the mother's body regulates itself. But if it's prolonged..." She paused, looking at me intently. "Lily, did something happen?" I shook my head, sliding off the table. "Nothing. Just asking." When I walked out of the room, the big screen in the waiting area was back to playing an educational documentary about gestational diabetes. The pregnant women who had been watching the live broadcast had dispersed. Some were scrolling on their phones, others chatting quietly. Snippets of conversation drifted toward me. Alex Caldwell and Vanessa Kensington. Such a beautiful couple. I walked past them and took the elevator down. The hospital lobby was even busier. Lines snaked away from the reception desks. I pushed through the crowd and out the glass doors. The 3:30 p.m. Sun hit my face hard. My phone vibrated in my purse. I pulled it out. The screen lit up with a name, Alex Caldwell. My thumb hovered over the answer button for 3 seconds. Then I swiped left, declining the call. The buzzing stopped. A few seconds later, it vibrated again. This time, it was a text. "Dinner at Le Bernardin tonight at 7. Mother says you absolutely must be there. George will pick you up at 5. I stared at those words and suddenly started laughing. I laughed until my eyes burned. I tilted my head up. On the massive LED billboard across the street in Times Square, they were also replaying the wedding. The camera focused on the newlyweds cutting the cake. Alex held Vanessa's hand. Together, they gripped the knife. Vanessa smiled so wide, her eyes turned into crescents, pressing her body against his. Alex's face was expressionless, but he didn't pull away. He even whispered something in her ear that made her laugh even brighter. My phone rang again. This time it was Evelyn Caldwell. Did you see the news? Alex and Vanessa had their commitment ceremony today. The official legal wedding will be after the baby is born. Come to dinner tonight. We need to clear a few things up. Don't make a scene or it'll be worse for you. I locked my phone screen and tossed it back into my bag. Then I raised my hand, hailing a yellow cab. The driver rolled down the window. Where to? Tryon Street. I gave him the address of my best friend, Mia. The cab merged into traffic. I leaned against the window, watching the city skyline blur past. As we drove down Broadway, another giant screen was looping the wedding. A crowd had gathered below, craning their necks. A girl was even recording it on her phone. So romantic. The cab driver glanced at the screen and muttered indifferently. Rich people and their circus acts. Word is the jewelry on that actress alone costs as much as a Manhattan penthouse. I didn't reply. He kept talking to himself, though. These billionaire marriages are all for show anyway. Who knows what really goes on behind closed doors? My phone buzzed again. I pulled it out. Unknown number. Hesitating, I answered. A fast-talking man's voice came through. Hello. I'm a journalist with the Weekly Insider. We received a tip that you are actually the legal wife of Alex Caldwell. His wedding today to Vanessa Kensington could be considered bigamy. Care to comment? My grip on the phone tightened. Lily, are you there? You have the wrong number, I said calmly. But we have proof that you and Alex Caldwell registered your marriage 3 years ago and that you are currently pregnant. I said you have the wrong number. I hung up and immediately powered off the device. The cab pulled up to Mia's luxury loft building. I paid, stepped out, and headed up. Mia lived on the 18th floor. I took the elevator up and rang the doorbell. It took nearly a minute for the door to open. Mia stood there in a silk robe, her hair a mess, clearly having just rolled out of bed. Seeing me, she was taken aback. Lily, what are you doing here at this hour? Didn't you have your ultrasound today? I stepped inside and slammed the door behind me. Leaning my back against the heavy wood, I slowly slid down to the floor. I looked up at her. Mia, help me. What happened? Mia immediately dropped to her knees and grabbed my hands. Why are your hands like ice and you're pale as a ghost? Did the Caldwells do something again? I shook my head, then nodded. Finally, I spoke. Alex married Vanessa Kensington today. I said it word by word, my voice so eerily calm it terrified me. Broadcast nationwide. I was at the clinic. They showed it on the giant screen in the waiting room. Mia's expression shifted from confusion to utter shock. And then her face flushed crimson with rage. He's insane! You aren't even divorced yet! That's bigamy! I'll sue him into the ground. It's useless, I cut her off. The Caldwells can turn black into white. Plus, I already signed the divorce agreement. He just hasn't signed it yet. In their eyes, I stopped being a Caldwell a long time ago. But they can't do this, Lily. Help me. I squeezed her hand with surprising strength. I want to leave tonight. But you're 5 months pregnant. That's exactly why I need you. I looked straight into her eyes. You still have connections at the airlines, right? Get me a ticket on a flight out of the country tonight. Anywhere. Just don't buy it under my name. Book it under yours. I'll pick up the ticket at the airport. Mia's lips trembled. Lily, think about this. It's too risky. You're alone, with twins. Staying here is riskier. I let go of her hand, pushed off the floor, and stood up. Evelyn ordered me to be at a family dinner tonight. Do you know what that means? She wants to force me, in front of all their relatives, to acknowledge Vanessa as the future Mrs. Caldwell. She wants me to sign away my rights to my children. She wants me to take a payout like a beggar and disappear. I walked over to the living room window and threw open the blinds. The late afternoon sunlight flooded the room, stinging my eyes. I've made up my mind, I said. My back to Mia. I will have these babies. But they will not carry the Caldwell name. They will be mine, and mine alone. There was a long silence behind me. Then I heard Mia sniffle. Okay, she said, her voice thick. I'll help. She ran into her bedroom and instantly returned with her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. There's a direct flight to Singapore tonight at 9:45 p.m. 2 seats left in business class. I'm booking it under my cousin's name, Kate. You just go to the VIP check-in counter and give them her info. Okay. When you get to Singapore, you'll stay with my Aunt Helen. She's an amazing woman. She runs a traditional wellness center there. She'll take good care of you. Once you're settled, we'll figure out the next steps. Mia. I turned to her. Don't tell anyone about this. Not even your aunt. She froze. Why? The Caldwells have long arms. I walked over to the sofa and sat down, gently rubbing my belly. I don't want to implicate anyone. I'll find my own place in Singapore. Don't worry, I have some money saved, enough to get by for a while. It was money I had secretly squirreled away over the past 3 years. The allowance Evelyn gave me every month, I hadn't spent a dime of it. I had routed it all to an offshore account. It wasn't billions, just about $150,000, but it was enough to start over from scratch. Mia's eyes grew red again. Lily, why do you have to suffer like this? Because I refuse to be a goldfish in their bowl anymore, I answered quietly. A car horn honked from down below. I walked to the window and looked down. Parked by the entrance was a black Mercedes SUV. The Caldwell's driver, George, stepped out and pulled out his phone to make a call. They're here, I said. Mia rushed to the window. So fast, it's only 4:30. Evelyn never liked waiting. I headed for the door. I'm going down. Mia, text me the flight info. I'll contact you when I'm at the airport. Lily. Mia grabbed my arm, tears finally spilling over. Please be careful. Let me know the second you're safe. I hugged her tight. I promise. I opened the door and walked out. As the elevator descended, I stared at my reflection in the mirrored walls, a pale, exhausted face, faint shadows under my eyes. But my eyes were burning like steel forged in fire. The lobby doors slid open. George saw me and quickly put his phone away. Lily, Mrs. Caldwell asked me to pick you up. All right. I got into the back seat. The SUV pulled out of the driveway and merged into the evening traffic. George glanced at me a few times in the rearview mirror, opening his mouth to speak but hesitating. Finally, he couldn't hold back. Lily, did you watch the news today? I did, I replied, staring out the window. A grand wedding. George fell silent. The only sound in the car was the quiet hum of the air conditioning. I closed my eyes, counting the days in my head. 5 months. 150 days. Alex Caldwell, Evelyn Caldwell, Vanessa Kensington. Every debt you owe me, I will remember. When I return, I will set the rules of the game. I didn't go to the family dinner. The Mercedes was taking me toward their Upper East Side penthouse, but 3 blocks away, I tapped the back of the driver's seat. George, pull over here. He looked at me in the mirror, confused. Lily, we aren't there yet. I don't feel well. I'm nauseous. I covered my mouth, my voice muffled. Just for a second. The heavy car slowly pulled over to the curb. The second I pushed the door open, I doubled over, pretending to dry heave. George instantly unbuckled, jumped out, and ran around to help me. Lily, are you all right? Do you need some water? This was my chance. I snapped upright. Before George could react, I bolted toward the open entrance of a nearby underground parking garage. The clicking of my heels echoed through the empty concrete structure. As I ran, I stripped off my coat and pulled a dark gray hoodie from my oversized tote bag, throwing it over my head. Lily! Lily, wait! George's shouts echoed behind me. I didn't look back. The garage had an exit on the opposite side, leading to a narrow side street. Mia's unassuming white hatchback was already idling there. The moment I threw myself into the passenger seat, Mia slammed on the gas. Seatbelt! Her voice was tight. I looked through the rear window and saw George run to the end of the alley, stop in confusion, and finally pull out his phone in frustration. He's definitely calling the Caldwells, Mia said, whipping the steering wheel to merge into traffic. We need to get to JFK fast. I dug into my bag, found my powered-off phone, rolled down the window, and tossed it straight into the back of a passing garbage truck. Mia's eyes went wide. Anything that can track me needs to be destroyed, I said calmly, pulling a brand new prepaid phone from my bag. I turned it on. Mia, is the ticket confirmed? Confirmed. She handed me a folder. Passport, visa, booking confirmation. It's all here. I got you an expedited business visa under Kate Thompson's profile. Aunt Helen will meet you in Singapore, but all she knows is that you're my friend, coming for a quiet place to carry out your pregnancy. Nothing else. I opened the passport. The photo looked similar enough to me, though my eyes were different back then. Back then, there was light in them. Now there was only ice. Thank you. I pressed the folder to my chest like a lifeline. We drove to the airport in silence. The setting sun painted the New York skyline in shades of fiery orange and blood red. Traffic was brutal. The taillights merged into a river of red. I stared out the window, saying a silent goodbye to the city where I had lived for 25 years. I was born here, went to college here, met Alex here. This was where he had slipped that staggeringly expensive yet utterly cold diamond ring onto my finger. Now I was leaving with two tiny lives inside me who had yet to see the world. Lily, Mia suddenly broke the silence, her voice a little raw. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Giving birth and raising twins alone in a foreign country. It's going to be so hard. I turned to her and smiled. Is staying with the Caldwells any easier? She didn't have an answer. We pulled up to Terminal 4 at JFK. Mia stopped at the drop-off zone, turned, and hugged me fiercely. Call me the second you land. Text me every day. If you run out of money, tell me. I'll wire it. You've already done more than enough. I hugged her back. Mia, for the next few years, do not try to contact me. If the Caldwells interrogate you, play dumb. You don't know anything. I pulled away and opened the door. Wait until I reach out to you. With a small carry-on suitcase, I walked into the terminal. Inside the suitcase were a few changes of clothes, essential documents, and a bottle of prenatal vitamins. Everything else that belonged to Lily Caldwell, wife of Alex, was left in that luxurious but freezing penthouse, including the 3-carat diamond ring. I had left it right in the center of my vanity table. What kind of expression would Alex have when he saw it? I didn't know, and I didn't care. Check-in, security, the lounge, at Saminen, AT Party Live PM. The flight took off right on schedule. As the wheels left the tarmac, lifting us into the night sky, I looked out the window at the receding city lights and placed a gentle hand on my stomach. Babies, I whispered. Mommy is taking you to a new world. Monsoon season in Singapore, humid and heavy. Mia's Aunt Helen turned out to be a kind-hearted woman in her 50s. She ran a small, well-respected, traditional Eastern medicine clinic. She set me up in a tiny 2-room apartment directly above it. It was old but spotless. Mia told me you came here to carry out your pregnancy because things were stressful back home, Aunt Helen said, bringing me a bowl of herbal chicken soup. Just live here peacefully. If you need anything, tell me. I don't have too many patients down there. It's quiet upstairs, perfect for resting. I took the bowl gratefully. Thank you, Aunt Helen. Don't mention it. She sat across from me, eyeing my belly. 5 months. Twins must be heavy. Look how thin you are. Come downstairs every day. I'll check your pulse and help build up your strength. And so, I stayed in that tiny apartment in a foreign country. For the first 2 months, I barely went outside. Every day, I helped Aunt Helen in the clinic, sorting herbs, learning to distinguish dried roots from leaves. In the afternoons, she checked my vitals and did acupuncture. At night, I read through her collection of books on traditional postpartum recovery. My belly grew by the day. By the 7th month, I couldn't see my own feet. One night, deep into the AMs, I was reading, propped up against the headboard, when a sharp, twisting pain ripped through my abdomen. My water broke. Gritting my teeth, I fumbled for my phone and dialed Aunt Helen. She rushed upstairs in under 5 minutes. Taking one look at me, she immediately called an ambulance. On the way to the hospital, the contractions intensified. I gripped Aunt Helen's hand so hard I thought my nails would break her skin. Deep breaths, Lily. Deep breaths, she repeated, but the tension in her voice betrayed her panic. Twins. Premature labor at 7 months. I knew the risks. By the time they wheeled me into the delivery room, I was half delirious from the pain. The blinding surgical lights cut into my eyes. The nurses' voices sounded far away. Push. One more. I don't know how much time passed, but the air was suddenly pierced by a baby's cry, and then a second one. The boy is first. The girl followed 30 seconds later. A nurse brought 2 tiny, swaddled bundles over to me. Congratulations, a boy and a girl. They're premature, but they've got strong lungs. They should be just fine. I turned my head and looked at the 2 tiny, red, wrinkled faces. Tears poured out effortlessly. The boy, Noah, I gasped out, and the girl, Grace. Those were names I had picked out a long time ago, back when I lay in that massive bed in the Caldwell penthouse, staring at the crystal chandelier, dreaming of a future. Aunt Helen, her eyes red, nodded. Beautiful names. I spent the first few weeks after the birth recovering at the clinic. Aunt Helen took care of me like I was her own daughter, cooking special restorative broths every day. Because they were early, Noah and Grace spent a month in the NICU. When I finally brought them home, they were tiny but so incredibly full of life. When the twins turned 3 months old, I made my first major move. Aunt Helen, I want to rent the empty storefront next to your clinic. I placed a bank card on the table in front of her. This is my life savings, about $150,000. I want to open a luxury postpartum wellness center. Aunt Helen froze. Lily, you're still nursing. Your body hasn't fully recovered. I can't wait. I looked over at the babies sleeping in their crib. I need to get on my feet as soon as possible. Half of this money will go toward rent and renovations. For the other half, I want to officially study Eastern postpartum recovery methods under you. She looked at me for a long time, finally letting out a sigh. You are one stubborn girl. If I wasn't stubborn, I would have died inside the Caldwell estate a long time ago. We secured the space quickly. 500 square feet. It used to be a cafe. I drafted the design myself. Warm wood tones, soft lighting, a dedicated lactation wall, and a specialized herbal steam room. Aura Postnatal Wellness. The day the sign went up, the sun was shining bright. Grace sat in her stroller, babbling and waving her little fists. Noah just watched quietly, his eyes taking everything in. His eyes were so much like his, but the gaze was entirely different. It was the gaze of my child, devoid of coldness, devoid of calculation, filled only with pure curiosity. For the first 3 months, we didn't have a single client. Aunt Helen referred a few of her own postnatal patients over to help me out. That's how I got my first regulars. I tapped into everything I'd learned as an economics major in college. I developed service packages, printed flyers, and even built a sleek website myself. My first real paying clients were local expat mothers. They tried the herbal steam treatments and the postpartum massages, and word of mouth spread like wildfire. By the time the twins turned 1, Aura had 3 full-time employees. By day, I ran the center. By evening, I took care of the kids. And by night, I studied for local childcare and maternal health certifications. I was exhausted, but every single day was filled with purpose. Noah spoke first. One morning, sitting in his playpen, he looked right at me and clearly enunciated. Mama, I broke down, sobbing on the spot. Grace started talking a month later, but she was the first to walk. When she wobbled forward and threw herself into my arms, her brother couldn't stop giggling. My phone was maxed out with their photos and videos, but I never dared to send a single one to Mia. I knew exactly how far the Caldwell's influence reached. Any digital footprint could be a breadcrumb. I could only pour my thoughts and their milestones into a thick, leather-bound journal. I was saving it for the day I could proudly stand in the sun. In our 3rd year, Aura opened its 2nd location. I received my international certification as a postpartum recovery specialist. My programs, blending traditional Eastern remedies with modern science, were featured in major Asian parenting magazines. In the 4th year, I expanded the business to include early childhood development, renting out a 3-story building. 1st floor, the Wellness Center. 2nd floor, early learning classrooms. 3rd floor, my private apartment with the kids. Business was booming, but I never stopped gathering intel. Mia flew to Singapore twice a year, bringing news of the Caldwells. Alex and Vanessa never legally got married, she whispered one evening as she played with Grace. After that big ceremony, Alex suddenly backed out of signing the papers. Vanessa threw a fit multiple times, but Evelyn managed to sweep it under the rug. I was reading a book to Noah. My fingers paused. Why did he back out? Nobody knows. Rumor has it Alex is looking for someone, like a man obsessed. He pulled all the security footage from the day you vanished, checked every intersection, train station, airport. But your passport was never swiped anywhere, because I used Kate Thompson's passport. And Vanessa still parades around with the title of Alex's fiancé, but everyone in their circle knows the family never fully accepted her. Seems like Evelyn isn't happy with her either. Thinks an actress isn't elite enough for their bloodline, Mia sneered. Serves her right. She should have thought about the consequences before home wrecking. I closed the book. Noah, Grace, go play with your blocks. The twins obediently held hands and trotted over to the play corner. Caldwell Enterprises has been aggressively expanding into the maternal and infant care market over the last few years. I walked over to my desk and opened my laptop. They bought up several domestic brands. Last year, they launched a luxury maternity center line that competes directly with what Aura does. I clicked open an encrypted file. I hired people to look into their quality control reports. 3 batches of their baby skincare line had lead levels far exceeding FDA limits. They buried the data. Mia leaned in. How did you get this? Money talks, I said calmly. The Caldwells have a lot of enemies. A lot of people want leverage on them. I'm just one of them. Lily, what are you planning? I stared at the Caldwell Enterprises logo glowing on the screen. It was the family I once thought I would dedicate my entire life to. I'm going back, I said. Mia gasped. Are you insane? Alex is still looking for you. If you go back, that's why I have a new identity. I pulled a folder from my safe. Aura is already an established player in Asia. I plan to make a highly publicized entry into the US market as an international luxury brand. I will keep the name Lily Anderson, but I won't be Lily, the discarded Caldwell wife. They need to know where they come from. I walked over to the window and looked down at the street below. Besides, some debts are overdue. By the spring of the 5th year, preparations for Aura's US headquarters were officially underway. I registered the corporation, assembled an executive team, and leased 2 floors in a prime midtown Manhattan skyscraper. The night before my flight, I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window of my Singapore apartment, staring out at the skyline. On my phone was an anonymous email I'd received earlier that day. Attached was a video file security footage from the VIP waiting area of that Manhattan perinatal center. The date was exactly 5 years ago. In the video, a pale version of myself, clutching my pregnant belly, stared up at a massive screen. And on that screen, the live broadcast of Alex and Vanessa's wedding. The text in the email contained a single line. We acquired what you requested. Wire the balance to the secondary account. I closed the video and opened another folder. It contained everything I had amassed over the past 5 years. Internal memos proving Caldwell Baby faked their lab results. Records of Evelyn Caldwell using illegal tactics to crush competitors. Compromising photos of Vanessa Kensington with a prominent film director. Evidence of tax evasion by several Caldwell board members. And a blank template for a DNA paternity test report. I picked up a framed photo from my desk. Me and the kids on a beach in Singapore. Sunset. I was crouching down, and Noah and Grace were kissing my cheeks. Babies, I whispered. Tomorrow, we're going home. The city lights sparkled like a silent celebration, but I knew the real battlefield awaited me 9,000 miles away, in the city I had fled 5 years ago. Alex Caldwell, I'm back. Are you ready for me? The flight touched down at JFK. At 3 p.m., Noah pressed his face against the airplane window. Mommy, is this where you were born? Yes. I adjusted his seatbelt. And this is where you and your sister were supposed to be born too. Grace sat in the adjacent seat, deeply focused on solving a Rubik's Cube. Hearing us, she looked up and blinked those clear, bright eyes. Eyes she had inherited entirely from me. Is Daddy here? The cabin fell silent for a second. My assistant, sitting in the row behind us, instinctively glanced at me. I calmly smoothed Grace's collar. Daddy is very far away. We're going to see Aunt Mia first. Okay. Grace nodded and went right back to her cube. The answer satisfied her. For the 4 years of her life, Daddy had just been a character in fairy tales. I never deliberately erased his existence, but I never brought him up either. The plane taxied to the gate. I took the kids by the hands and stepped off. 5 years of exile vanished the moment my feet hit American soil. The smell of the air, the New York accents over the intercom, the familiar brands on the billboards, everything reminded me I was back. Mia was waiting for us outside the VIP arrivals exit. She practically sprinted over and crushed me in a hug. "You crazy girl. 5 years. Do you know what these 5 years have been like for me?" Her voice shook with tears. I rubbed her back. "I'm sorry." "What good is sorry?" She pulled back, her eyes red, and crouched down in front of the kids. "These must be Noah and Grace. Oh my God, they're so big. Give Auntie Mia a hug." Noah felt shy and hid behind my leg. Grace fearlessly threw her arms wide. "Hi, Auntie Mia. Mommy showed us pictures of you all the time." Zuka smart girl. Mia picked Grace up and patted Noah on the head. "Come on, Auntie's going to buy you guys the best food in the city." In the SUV on the way into Manhattan, Mia finally calmed down and switched to business mode. "There's a high-level networking gala tomorrow night. I got you an invitation. The organizer is the Chamber of Commerce. Very elite crowd. All the major players will be there. Alex Caldwell has RSVP'd." She pulled out her iPad and opened a guest list. Here's his track record over the last 3 years. Caldwell Enterprises went hard into maternal and baby products, but growth stalled last year. This year, they're preparing to launch the Nurture brand of luxury maternity centers, which puts them in direct competition with Aura. I stared at the photo of Alex on the screen. Same face, deep-set eyes, cold gaze. But there were faint lines around his eyes now, and his demeanor seemed even heavier. He had aged. And Vanessa became the face of Caldwell Baby 6 months ago. The PR push was massive. The future Mrs. Caldwell personally guarantees the quality of our products, but they barely make public appearances together. Word on the street is Evelyn forced her into an ironclad prenup. Vanessa threw tantrums, but they shut her down fast. I nodded. My eyes drifted to the next name on the list. Harrington Health. Chris Harrington is going to be there too. He took over the family business 3 years ago, been heavily investing in healthcare. Last week, he was poking around, asking about Aura through back channels. Mia lowered her voice. "Lily, do you remember Chris Harrington?" I remembered. How could I not? In college, he chased me for 2 years. After I turned him down, he moved abroad for his MBA, returning as the golden boy heir. Small world. Does he know you're the founder of Aura? Probably not yet. The industry knows the founder is Lily Anderson from Singapore, but I'm sure he thinks it's a coincidence. But tomorrow at the gala, you'll have to use your real identity. That's fine. I locked the iPad screen. Whoever is meant to cross paths will cross paths. The SUV pulled up to a luxury high-rise in Tribeca. I had bought this penthouse months in advance. Top floor, 270, panoramic views, maximum security. Mia came up with us. Looking over the massive living room and the custom-built playroom, she breathed a sigh of relief. "This is nice. My friend owns the management company here. You don't have to worry about security." "Thank you." "Oh, stop it." She checked her watch. "I have to run. Got a client meeting. I'll pick you up at 5 tomorrow." We're going straight to my stylist. After seeing Mia off, I gave the kids a tour of their new home. Grace ran from room to room in awe. Noah stood quietly by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the endless stream of yellow cabs below. "Mom," Noah said suddenly, "are we here to fight a war?" My heart skipped a beat. I crouched down to meet his eyes. Why would you ask that? When Auntie Mia was talking in the car, she looked really serious. And when you read those papers, your eyebrows scrunch up like this. Noah's tiny hand reached out and touched my forehead. "Right here." I took his hand. "Noah, Mom does have some important business to take care of. But you and your sister just need to be happy and grow up. Mom will handle the rest." He looked at me for a long moment, then finally nodded. "Okay, I will protect my sister." In that moment, in his serious gaze, I saw the shadow of him. I pulled Noah into a tight hug. "And Mom will protect both of you." The next day, at 5 p.m., Mia arrived with a glam squad. 2 hours later, I was staring at myself in the mirror. An emerald green velvet evening gown. Simple cut, but it hugged my waist perfectly. My long hair was swept into a sleek low chignon. Simple pearl earrings. The makeup was understated, but the focus was on my eyes. That was the part of me that had changed the most. 5 years ago, the submissive, timid Lily Anderson died in front of that TV screen. Standing here now was the founder and CEO of Aura, Lily Anderson. Flawless. Mia circled me. When Alex sees you, his jaw is going to hit the floor. Grace ran out of her room and hugged my leg. Mommy, you look like a princess. Noah followed, dressed in a sharp little suit. Mia's assistant was taking them to a fancy kids' dinner and play space for the evening, and I would pick them up after the gala. Be good for the babysitter, okay? I leaned down and kissed their foreheads. Mommy will be back soon. The reception was held in a rotating ballroom at the top of a skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. As the glass elevator shot upwards, the glittering tapestry of the city unfolded beneath us. Don't be nervous, Mia whispered, linking her arm through mine. Tonight, you're just making an appearance to let the New York elite know that Aura has arrived. The rest we take step by step. I'm not nervous, I replied. The elevator doors chimed open. The room was packed. Crystal chandeliers fractured the blinding light. The soft notes of a grand piano mingled with the fizz of champagne. Waiters glided effortlessly through the crowd. Barely a minute after we walked in, a man approached us. Mia, darling, it's been ages. A balding, middle-aged executive extended his hand. It has. Mr. Harrington, Sr., let me introduce you. Mia smiled, stepping aside. This is Miss Lily Anderson, the founder of the luxury maternal wellness brand, Aura. Lily, this is the chairman of Harrington Health. Miss Anderson, you are so young to have achieved such phenomenal success. He shook my hand, his gaze lingering on my face for an extra second. You know, you look incredibly familiar. I just have one of those faces, I smiled politely, withdrawing my hand. We exchanged a few pleasantries before other guests interrupted. Over the years, Mia had turned her boutique PR agency into a powerhouse and built a massive network. She paraded me around the room, and soon I had a dozen high-level business cards in my clutch. Lily? A soft male voice called from behind. I turned. Standing 2 steps away, holding a champagne flute, and smiling warmly, was Chris Harrington. He had matured since our college days. The eyes behind his gold-rimmed glasses were still kind, but they now held the sharp edge of a seasoned businessman. Chris! I extended my hand. I've heard great things about you. He shook my hand, holding on a second longer than strictly necessary. It really is you. I heard the founder of Aura was named Lily Anderson out of Asia, but I thought it was just a coincidence. Small world. I pulled my hand back. He was studying me openly, not hiding his appraisal. You've changed a lot. 5 years is a long time. You two know each other? Mia asked tactfully. We went to NYU together, Chris smiled. Lily was the queen of the economics department. The line of guys wanting to date her stretched from Washington Square Park to Houston Street. You exaggerate. I took a glass of sparkling cider from a passing waiter. I needed absolute clarity tonight. As we chatted, a sudden ripple of tension moved through the entrance of the ballroom. I didn't need to turn around to know who had arrived. That kind of aura, that kind of gravitational pull, could only belong to one person, Alex Caldwell. Mia instinctively squeezed my arm. I patted her hand, gently maintaining my composed expression as I continued talking to Chris. I read about the private maternity clinics your group is heavily investing in. Aura has some highly integrated tech solutions for postnatal recovery. We should discuss a potential partnership. Absolutely. Chris's eyes drifted past me toward the entrance. Alex Caldwell just walked in. Should we go say hello? No rush. I took a sip of my cider. It's a long night. Even as I said it, I felt a stare burning into my back, sharp as a needle. Footsteps. The heavy thud of expensive leather shoes against the marble floor grew closer. The conversations around us died down. The crowd naturally parted. I turned around. Alex Caldwell stood 3 feet away from me. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone. 5 years had left their mark on him, not with age, but with a cold, hardened edge. His eyes were deeper, his jawline sharper. He looked like an unsheathed sword that had already tasted blood. He was staring at me. His gaze swept over my face, down my figure, and back up to my eyes. In his expression was shock, confusion, disbelief, and finally, it all locked into a bottomless, dark intensity. "Lily," he said. His voice was lower, rougher than I remembered. "Mr. Caldwell." I smiled perfectly and raised my glass slightly. "Long time no see." The air froze. Everyone held their breath. In this circle, who didn't know the explosive scandal from 5 years ago when the Caldwell wife vanished into thin air? Who didn't know that Alex Caldwell had torn the world apart looking for her for 5 years? And now here she was, glowing, confident, as if she had simply returned from an extended European vacation. Alex took a step forward. I caught the familiar scent of cedarwood, his signature cologne. He hadn't changed it in 5 years. "Where have you been?" he asked, his voice so quiet it sounded like it was ground out between his teeth. "Singapore," I answered breezily. "Started a business. Things are going quite well." "And how have you been, Mr. Caldwell?" "I hear Caldwell Enterprises is thriving." "Congratulations." He stared at me as if trying to find a single crack in the mask, a shred of the old Lily, but he couldn't. Over 5 years, I had fundamentally rebuilt myself. "You," his Adam's apple bobbed. "When did you get back?" "This afternoon," I kept smiling. "Just in time for the gala." "Oh, Mr. Caldwell, allow me to introduce you. This is Chris Harrington, CEO of Harrington Health. Chris and I go way back, NYU undergrads." "Mr. Caldwell," Chris smoothly extended his hand. "A pleasure." Alex glanced at him but didn't take his hand. His eyes snapped right back to me. "We need to talk." "Now isn't really a good time." I looked around. "The networking is in full swing. I'm here officially representing Aura. We have to observe professional etiquette. Perhaps another time. I can have my assistant reach out to your secretary. Lily." He stepped closer. So close we were almost touching. "Don't play this game with me." The smile vanished from my face. "Mr. Caldwell," I looked him dead in the eye. "We are at a public corporate event. Please maintain your professionalism. Besides, I don't believe we have any personal matters left to discuss." "No personal matters?" He let out a dark, humorless chuckle. "You are my legal wife. You vanish for 5 years, suddenly reappear, and tell me we have no personal matters?" Gasps rippled through the bystanders. Mia turned pale and opened her mouth to intervene, but I stopped her with a look. I set my cider glass down on a nearby cocktail table. The glass hit the glass surface with a sharp clink. "Legal wife?" I repeated, my voice low but perfectly audible to everyone nearby. "Mr. Caldwell, you seem to have forgotten that I signed the divorce papers 5 years ago? Just because you refused to countersign doesn't change the fact that we have been separated for 5 years. The marriage is irrevocably broken. I have already instructed my legal team to file a formal divorce suit. The papers will be served to your corporate legal department first thing Monday morning." Alex's face instantly darkened like a thundercloud. "You want a divorce? Isn't that what you and Evelyn always wanted?" I smiled again. "I'm simply fulfilling your wishes." With that, I broke eye contact. I turned back to Chris. "Chris, regarding the proposal we mentioned, I have a detailed pitch deck. I'll have my office send it to yours tomorrow morning." Chris looked at me with deep respect. "Excellent. I'll be waiting." I nodded to him, then linked my arm through Mia's. "Mia, let's go say hi to the chamber president. I hear his wife just had their second baby. Maybe she'd be interested in our postnatal recovery suites." We turned and walked away. Even after taking several steps, I could still feel his gaze piercing my spine. Mia's hands were shaking. "Lily, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said softly. "This is just the beginning." For the rest of the evening, Alex never took his eyes off me, but I didn't glance his way once. I smiled, shook hands, exchanged cards, and discussed business. At the organizer's request, I even gave a brief 5-minute impromptu speech on the main stage about Aura's philosophy. The applause was thunderous. As I stepped off the stage, I saw Alex standing in a dark corner of the room, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He wasn't drinking it. He was just watching me. His eyes held a storm of emotions: anger, confusion, and something I had never seen in him before: panic. The gala wrapped up around 10 p.m. Mia went to get the car from the valet. I stood waiting by the hotel entrance. The night breeze cut through the New York humidity. I pulled my shawl tighter. Footsteps approached from behind. Lily. I didn't turn around. Alex stepped up and stood beside me. The smell of scotch mixed with his cedar cologne. "The baby?" he asked. My heart clenched, but my face remained an impassive mask. "Why do you ask, Mr. Caldwell? 5 years ago. When you left, you were 5 months pregnant." His voice was gravelly. "Did you give birth?" I turned and finally looked at him. "I did," I answered. A flash of raw emotion crossed his eyes, but I cut him off sharply. "They have absolutely nothing to do with you. They are my children, mine alone." "Lily!" He grabbed my wrist. His grip was so tight my bones ached. "Those are my kids. I have a right to know." "A right?" I laughed out loud, violently yanking my arm free. "Alex Caldwell, what rights do you have? 5 years ago, when I was 5 months pregnant, waddling into my prenatal checkup, you were throwing a multi-million-dollar wedding with another woman and broadcasting it to the entire country. Did you care about your rights when you made me the laughingstock of the city? Did you care about your rights when I needed you most and you sent me to voicemail? Did you care about your rights when your mother humiliated me over and over and tried to force me to abort?" I stepped closer to him, my voice barely a whisper. But every word sliced like a scalpel. "And now you want to talk to me about your rights? Alex, you ripped up those rights with your own 2 hands 5 years ago." In the dim light of the street lamps, his face was ashen. His lips parted, but no sound came out. The sweep of headlights cut through the dark. Mia's SUV pulled up. I gave him one last look. "Don't forget to sign the divorce papers. Dragging it out will only make it uglier for you." I opened the passenger door and slid in. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. He was still standing on the sidewalk, as frozen as a statue. Mia asked cautiously, "What did he say? Did he ask about the kids?" I watched the neon lights of Times Square blur past. He guessed. "So what now?" I leaned my head back against the leather seat and closed my eyes. Everything is going according to plan. What's meant to happen will happen. Outside the window, the city that never sleeps hummed with life. But I knew that after tonight, nothing would ever be the same. Monday morning, 7:30 a.m. I stood with Noah and Grace at the gates of the Elite Horizon Academy on the Upper East Side. It was the most exclusive, expensive private preschool in the city, bilingual immersion, ex-Secret Service security, and most importantly, grueling background checks for admissions. I had secured 2 spots by leveraging my status as the CEO of an international brand and my foreign residency. "Mommy, it's like a castle." Grace craned her neck, staring up at the limestone building. Her little face beamed. Noah silently scanned the perimeter, gripping my hand tightly. The principal, an elegant woman in her 40s, named Mrs. Kensington, no relation to Vanessa, greeted us personally and gave us a tour. We keep our classes very small, no more than 15 children. All our teachers are highly credentialed native speakers. The curriculum covers STEM, arts, athletics, and emotional intelligence, she explained as we walked. "Rest assured, Miss Anderson, our families are highly vetted. The environment here is incredibly supportive." Supportive? I glanced at the row of Maybachs and Range Rovers idling outside, but said nothing. The paperwork went smoothly. Noah and Grace were placed in the same class. Their lead teacher was a bright, energetic British woman named Miss Mary. The kids adapted instantly. Within 10 minutes, Grace had already made friends with a girl at the coloring table. Noah sat in the reading nook, quietly flipping through a picture book. "They are wonderful children," Principal Kensington said approvingly. "Especially your son. His focus is remarkable." "Thank you. I'll pick them up at 4 p.m. If anything happens, call my cell immediately." Barely an hour after I arrived at my office, my phone rang. The caller ID was the preschool. I picked up instantly. Miss Anderson. This is Miss Mary. The teacher's voice was frantic. Noah had an altercation with another boy in the class. The other boy's mother is already here. Could you please come in? I'm on my way. When I arrived back at Horizon Academy, before I even opened the door to the principal's office, I heard a shrill, piercing voice. What kind of feral child is this, fighting at 4 years old? Where are his parents? I pushed the door open. Inside, Noah was standing next to Miss Mary. His little face was set like stone, his uniform slightly rumpled, but his back was perfectly straight. Opposite him, a chubby boy was crying, clinging to the hem of an elegantly dressed woman's skirt. The boy had a faint red scratch on his cheek. And the woman, I recognized her instantly, Vanessa Kensington. Even though she was wearing oversized Chanel sunglasses indoors, the arrogant posture was unmistakable. Hearing the door open, she whipped around. Behind the dark lenses, her eyes widened dramatically. You! I ignored her completely and walked straight to Noah. I knelt down. Noah. What happened? Seeing me, the tension in Noah's little shoulders melted away. Mom! He tried to rip Grace's toy away and pushed her. I told him to apologize. He said no and called Grace a bad name, so I pushed him. Pushed him? Vanessa shrieked. My son's cheek is bright red, and you call that a push? He hit him. Miss Mary, how do you even allow kids with such violent tendencies into this school? Miss Mary tried to de-escalate. Miss Kensington, it was just a typical playground squabble. A squabble? Vanessa ripped off her sunglasses, glaring with perfectly lined eyes. I have never laid a finger on my son his entire life. And now some fatherless brat assaults him and you call it a squabble? At the words fatherless brat, the air in the room iced over. I slowly stood up. Miss Kensington. My voice was dangerously calm. Apologize. Right now. Me. Apologize? Vanessa laughed like I had told a joke. Your kid beats up my kid and I have to apologize? First, your son pushed my daughter. Second, the words you just used were highly offensive. I stared her down, enunciating every syllable. I said, apologize to my son. Vanessa's expression twisted. She looked me up and down, taking in my tailored, unbranded designer suit. You're the mother. No wonder I haven't seen you around. New money? That is none of your concern. I turned to the teacher. Miss Mary, I want to see the security footage. Miss Mary hesitated. We need the principal's authorization to pull the tapes. Then go get the principal. Just then, the door swung open again, and a tall man walked in. Alex Caldwell. He had clearly rushed straight from the office. His suit jacket was draped over his arm, his shirt sleeves rolled up to the elbows, exposing strong forearms. Seeing the chaos in the room, he frowned. What is going on here? Vanessa, acting as if her savior had arrived, immediately lunged forward and grabbed his arm. Alex, you're finally here. Look at Jackson's face. That kid hit him. I demanded an apology, and they're attacking me. Alex's gaze drifted down to the crying boy, Jackson. Then it slid over to Noah. In that instant, Alex froze. Time seemed to stop. The office became so silent you could hear the hum of the air purifier. Alex stared at Noah, unblinking. The shape of the eyebrows, the bridge of the nose, the specific way his lips pressed together in defiance. The resemblance was so uncanny, so striking, that anyone with eyes could see it. Noah stared back at him. In the 4-year-old's eyes, there was crystal clarity. No fear, no intimidation, just calm, curious appraisal. This child, Alex's voice was bone dry. Whose is he? Vanessa, entirely oblivious to the tension, kept complaining. They say they're new. Lord knows how she raises him. I am his mother. I took a step forward, shielding Noah with my body. Mr. Caldwell. Hello again. Only then did Alex's eyes snap to me. In his gaze was a chaotic storm. Shock, sudden realization, fury, and a profound, agonizing pain. His Adam's apple bobbed violently. How old is he? 4. I said flatly. Born December 17th. 5 months pregnant, plus premature delivery at 7 months. The math aligned perfectly. The color drained from Alex's face. He dropped Vanessa's arm and took a step forward. He knelt down, bringing himself to eye level with Noah. "What is your name?" Noah looked up at me. I gave him a tiny nod. "Alexander," Noah answered. "But they call me Noah." "Alexander." "Noah," Alex repeated, his voice barely a breath. "Is it just you and your mom? Do you have a sister?" Noah pointed to Grace, who had been standing quietly next to Miss Mary the whole time. "That's Grace." Alex's gaze shifted to the little girl in the pink dress with pigtails. Grace shyly hid behind the teacher, but her eyes that were a carbon copy of mine, made Alex stumble backward. He had to grip the edge of the desk to keep from falling. Vanessa finally realized something was very wrong. "Alex, what's the matter with you? Do you know them?" He stood up and looked at me. His eyes were bloodshot. "You had them this whole time? What did you expect?" I shot back. "For me to wait around until Evelyn threw them into an orphanage?" "My mother." "Mr. Caldwell," I cut him off sharply. "Right now, we are dealing with a disciplinary issue. Your son took a toy from my daughter and shoved her. My son defended his sister and pushed back. How do you suggest we resolve this?" Alex took a deep breath, visibly forcing himself to function. He turned to the crying boy. "Jackson, tell the truth. Did you start it?" Jackson, terrified by his stern tone, hid behind Vanessa. Vanessa was outraged. "Alex, he's 4 years old. Even if he started it, it's just kids playing. That boy hit him hard. I am asking you." Alex stared down at Jackson. "Did you push the girl first?" Jackson burst into fresh tears. I just wanted to play with her doll." "Apologize," Alex commanded. Vanessa couldn't believe her ears. "Alex, apologize," Alex repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. "To the little girl you pushed, and the boy you insulted." Sniffling, Jackson turned to Noah and Grace. "I'm sorry." "It's okay," Grace squeaked out. Noah said nothing, just looking up at me. "Noah," I said softly. He apologized. "What about you?" Noah finally looked at Jackson. "I shouldn't have pushed you. But don't ever be mean to my sister again." Jackson nodded. "Okay." I turned to the teacher. "Since this is resolved, I will be taking my children home for the day. They are excused." "Yes, of course, Miss Anderson." I took the twins by the hands and headed for the door. As I passed Alex, he stepped into my path. "Lily," his voice was strained. "We need to talk. Mr. Caldwell, I'm very busy." I didn't look at him. "And we have nothing to talk about. They are my children." His voice finally cracked. "I have a right. You have absolutely zero rights." I tilted my head back and looked him dead in the eyes. "Legally, you merely provided half their DNA. Factually, you haven't been a father for a single second of their lives. Alex, if you have a shred of conscience left, do not play the loving father here." With that, I sidestepped him and walked out the door. The hallway was dead quiet. From inside the office, I heard Vanessa's hysterical voice ring out. "Alex, what does this mean? Are those kids yours? Answer me." I didn't look back. Once we got to the parking garage, I buckled the kids into their car seats. It was only then I realized my hands were shaking violently. "Mom," Noah said suddenly, from the back seat. "Is that man my dad?" My hands froze on the seatbelt strap. In the rearview mirror, I saw Noah's calm, serious face. Grace was staring at me too, her eyes wide. My worst fear had happened. I turned around to face them. "Yes, but Mom and he had some very bad things happen a long time ago. So, we won't be living together, and you won't either. You just need to know that Mom loves you, and Auntie Mia loves you. That's enough." Noah nodded. "Okay," Grace asked quietly. "Does he love us?" My heart twisted like it was pierced by a needle. "Mom doesn't know," I answered honestly. "But Mom will love you enough for 2 people. So we don't need his love." On the drive back to Tribeca, Grace quickly fell asleep, exhausted by the drama. Noah stared out the window. As we neared the apartment building, he suddenly spoke. "Mom, I don't like him." "Why not?" "Because he made you sad." Noah's voice was small but firm. I saw it. When you looked at him, your eyes were sad. My grip on the steering wheel tightened to the point of pain. 4 years old, and he was already so perceptive. Noah, I said softly. Mom was sad. But that was a long time ago. Now Mom has you and Grace, and my work, and our future. Mom isn't sad anymore. That's good. He seemed to let out a breath of relief. If you aren't sad, then Grace and I are happy. Once we got upstairs and I put the kids down for a nap, I stepped out onto the terrace and called Mia. Lily, what happened? You sound off. Alex saw the kids at the preschool today, I said. Dead silence on the other end. And did he figure it out? I didn't deny it. I closed my eyes, letting the city noise wash over me. Vanessa was there too. It was a whole scene. What are you going to do? Stick to the plan. I opened my eyes and looked at the distant spire of the Caldwell Enterprises building, cutting into the Manhattan skyline. Is everything ready? Ready. I have the original, unedited security footage from the clinic 5 years ago. Your chain of evidence proving Caldwell Baby faked their FDA reports is rock solid. As for Vanessa, I found the girl who used to be her personal assistant. She's willing to testify that 5 years ago, Vanessa intentionally seduced Alex and bribed the Caldwell driver to snap those photos of you having coffee with a college friend, staging them to look like you were having an affair. Perfect, I said. Wait for my signal. The moment I hung up, my phone rang again. Unknown number, I answered. Lily? It was Alex's hoarse voice. We have to meet, Mr. Caldwell. I'm very busy. Just 10 minutes, he pleaded. I'm downstairs at your building. I walked to the edge of the terrace and looked down. The familiar black Bentley was parked by the curb. Alex was leaning against the door, phone to his ear, looking up toward my floor. Dusk was settling over the city. The street lamps cast a long, lonely shadow over him, but not a single string in my heart plucked in sympathy. Wait there. I hung up, changed into a trench coat, and took the elevator down. I crossed the marble lobby and pushed through the revolving glass doors. The cool evening wind hit my face. I pulled my coat tight. Seeing me, Alex stood up straight. Are the kids asleep? He asked. Yes. They're beautiful. His voice was hushed. They look like you and me. I stayed silent. He stared at me, a storm raging behind his eyes. These 5 years. It must have been so hard for you, raising them alone. It was fine, I answered coldly. Easier than living with the Caldwells. The corner of his mouth twitched. Lily. He took a step forward. I need to explain what happened back then. There's no need. I took a step back, maintaining a strict distance. Alex, if you're here to dig up the past, we can end this conversation now. Aside from finalizing our divorce, there is nothing left between us to discuss. And the children? His voice rose. They are my flesh and blood. I have rights. What rights? I interrupted, my voice slicing through the New York air. 5 years ago, when you were publicly humiliating me in front of the whole world, did you think about your right to be a father? When your mother continuously harassed me, telling me to get an abortion, did you say a single word in my defense? Alex, what gives you the right to talk about rights now? In the darkness, his face was as pale as paper. I didn't know. His voice shook. I swear to God, I didn't know you were pregnant. My mother never told me. That wedding. I was forced. My mother threatened to jump off the roof of the Caldwell building if I didn't marry Vanessa to secure the merger. So, I laughed, though tears threatened the corners of my eyes. So I had to be the collateral damage? I had to carry your children and watch you marry another woman on national television? Don't blame it all on your mother. You are a grown man. You had a choice, and you simply chose what was most profitable for you. He shook his head, desperate to speak, but choked on his words. I wiped my eyes and took a deep breath. I filed the divorce papers. You will not get custody. A judge will look at your 5-year absence and your mother's documented attempts to coerce an abortion, and they will laugh you out of court. If you are smart, just sign the papers, and we can end this peacefully. Peacefully? The words seemed to physically wound him. Lily, how can we ever end this peacefully? Then we don't end it peacefully, I replied with ice in my veins. But the result will be the same. Alex Caldwell, I am no longer the naive girl you could manipulate 5 years ago. If you want a war, bring it. I turned to walk back inside. Wait! He shouted. Just let me see them. Please, I am their father. I stopped, but didn't turn around. Once the divorce is finalized, we can discuss it, if they want to see you. As I walked into the lobby, I heard the muffled, heavy thud of a fist slamming against the hood of a car. Once, twice. I didn't look back. As the elevator carried me upward, I stared at my reflection in the mirror doors. This is just the beginning, Alex. Every ounce of pain you caused me, I will bleed back out of you. Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Principal Kensington called me. Miss Anderson, I am so sorry to bother you. A man arrived at the school this morning claiming to be the children's father. He demanded to take DNA swabs from Noah and Grace. We refused, of course. But he is being very aggressive. He brought a lawyer. What should we do? I gripped my phone. Was it Alex Caldwell? Yes. He said if you don't consent, he will file for a court-ordered paternity test. I'll be right there. When I arrived at the preschool, Alex was indeed there. He was sitting on the leather sofa in the principal's office. Next to him stood a man in a sharp suit holding a briefcase, clearly corporate counsel. Seeing me, Mrs. Kensington breathed a sigh of relief. Miss Anderson. Alex looked up. His eyes were completely bloodshot, his jaw covered in dark stubble. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Lily. He stood up. We need to discuss the children. There is nothing to discuss. I tossed my handbag onto the desk. Mrs. Kensington, I apologize for the disruption. I promise it won't happen again. Lily? Alex raised his voice. Are they my kids or not? I need a straight answer. An answer? I turned on him. You already know the answer. If you weren't certain they were yours, you wouldn't be rushing here with a lawyer demanding swabs. You just want a piece of paper to give you legal leverage to interfere in their lives. It is my right, he practically yelled. The room fell into suffocating silence. Mrs. Kensington and the lawyer held their breath. I looked at Alex, and suddenly I found it hilarious. 5 years ago, he didn't care if I lived or died. He didn't even know I was 5 months pregnant. And now here he was, frothing at the mouth, fighting for his rights as a father. Fine, I nodded. You want a test? Have at it. He froze, clearly not expecting me to agree so easily. But I have conditions, I continued. 1. The swabs are taken only in my presence, at a lab of my choosing. 2. When the results come back positive, you and your mother stay the hell away from them. Impossible. Alex fired back instantly. If they are my blood, I will never abandon them. Then I'll see you in court. I grabbed my bag. Mrs. Kensington, please ensure security does not let anyone near my children. Lily. Alex blocked the door. His voice dropped. What do you want from me? They are my blood. How can I pretend they don't exist? The same way you pretended I didn't exist 5 years ago. I looked him dead in the eye. He flinched as if struck. I bypassed him and walked out. The hallway was flooded with glaring, abrasive sunlight. I leaned against the wall, taking several deep breaths to push down the bile and tears rising in my throat. Don't cry, Lily. You don't get to cry. My phone buzzed. It was Mia. Lily, guess who just waltzed into my office? She let out a cold, sharp laugh. Evelyn Caldwell. She's demanding a meeting with you. Tell her I'm busy. She refuses to leave. Says she'll sit here until you show up. Mia lowered her voice. She brought a checkbook. I caught a glimpse. $5 million. $5 million. 5 years ago when she cornered me to sign the divorce papers, she offered 3. Inflation, I guess. I'm coming, I said. Give me 20 minutes. On my way to Mia's PR agency in Midtown, Chris Harrington called. Lily, I heard about the scene at the preschool today. His tone was grave. Do you need help? News travels fast. Thanks, Chris. I've got it handled for now. I kept my eyes on the road. It's a family matter. All right, but consider this a warning. Chris paused. The Caldwells play dirty, and Evelyn is lethal. She survived Wall Street cutthroats for 30 years. Her methods are vicious. You're alone with 2 kids. Watch your back. I know, I said softly. Thank you. I pressed the gas pedal down. Mia's agency was on the 20th floor of a sleek glass tower. As soon as the receptionist saw me, she stood up. Miss Anderson, Mia is in the main conference room. Mrs. Caldwell is in there with her. I nodded and walked straight in. Pushing the glass door open, I saw Mia sitting at the head of the long table, arms crossed, looking furious. Opposite her sat Evelyn Caldwell. Evelyn wore a dark purple designer suit with gold embroidery, her hair perfectly coiffed. She was sipping a cup of coffee with an elegance that belonged in a Vogue spread. 5 years hadn't humbled her. She had aged slightly, but her arrogance had only sharpened. Lily. She set the cup down and looked up at me. Sit. Her tone was that of a master giving an order to a maid. I pulled out the chair next to Mia and sat. Mrs. Caldwell. To what do I owe the pleasure? I heard you came back to New York and brought 2 children with you. Evelyn reached into her Hermes bag, pulled out a check, and slid it across the mahogany table. $5 million. Take the money, take the kids, and leave this country permanently. I looked down at the check. The zeros were neatly written. I laughed. Evelyn, 5 years later, and your only trick is still throwing money at your problems? It is the most efficient method. Her face was completely unreadable. 5 years ago, you made the smart choice by signing the divorce agreement. Make the smart choice again. Alex and Vanessa's legal marriage has been delayed, but it will happen eventually. Your presence here with those children complicates things. Complicates things? I picked up the check and held it up to the light. Are you afraid I'm going to ruin your carefully orchestrated corporate merger? Or are you afraid the Caldwell family's dirty laundry is going to get aired out? Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Watch your tone, girl. I am watching it. I tossed the check back onto the table. But you, Evelyn. 5 years ago, you lied to me, telling me Alex was on a business trip while you were actually orchestrating his wedding to Vanessa. You bullied me into signing divorce papers, and you even tried to bribe my OB/GYN to prescribe me abortion pills. Do I need to list your crimes alphabetically? Mia gasped. Lily, she actually… Keep your mouth shut, Evelyn snapped at Mia, then turned back to me. Lily, there is no point in dragging up the past. You have 2 options right now. Option 1, take the $5 million and vanish. Option 2. She paused. I will make sure you cannot survive in this country. A threat. A naked, unapologetic threat. I stared at her, suddenly remembering a sunny afternoon 5 years ago. She had sat in the Caldwell penthouse using that exact same icy tone. Lily, Alex needs to marry a woman who can fortify this family's empire, not a nobody from a middle-class background like you. Leave quietly and keep your dignity. Back then, I had cried, begged, and ultimately signed. But not today. I stood up, picked up the check, and slowly, deliberately tore it into tiny pieces. $5 million cannot sever the blood tie between my children and me, and it certainly cannot pay off the debt your son owes me. The shredded pieces of paper fluttered down like snow onto the polished table. Evelyn's face finally cracked. Lily, do not test my patience. I leaned forward, planting both hands on the table, and looked dead into her eyes. Listen to me very carefully, Evelyn. I am divorcing your son. He will not get the children. And as for you, everything you did to me 5 years ago, I remember. And the bill is coming due. I stood up straight and looked at Mia. Mia, show our guest out. Mia practically leapt up and opened the door. Mrs. Caldwell, after you. Evelyn stood up slowly. She looked at me with eyes dripping with venom. You will regret this, Lily. My biggest regret was marrying into your family 5 years ago, I smiled. But I won't regret what comes next, because I am going to watch you and your son pay for what you did. She didn't say another word. Spine perfectly straight, she marched out of the room. The door clicked shut. Mia grabbed my hands. Lily, are you crazy? Tearing up her check in her face? Do you know what she's capable of? I know. I walked over to the window, watching Evelyn's black Rolls-Royce pull away from the curb far below. I know she has politicians in her pocket. I know she's ruthless. But Mia, I'm not the same Lily who could be crushed under her heel 5 years ago. I turned back. The war has started. There's no turning back. Mia stayed quiet for a long time, then let out a heavy sigh. What do you need me to do? Find me the most vicious divorce attorney in New York, I said, and send me the contact info for Vanessa's ex-assistant. It's time to drag some rats out into the light. Later that same day, I was served with court papers. Alex had filed an emergency motion to establish paternity, demanding a mandatory DNA test. Mia was so angry she shattered a coffee mug. He actually has the nerve to sue you. Lily, we have to fight this. The second the results come back, he's going to file for full custody. We're going to consent, I said calmly, looking at the subpoena. And we're not just going to consent. We're going to make a spectacle out of it. What do you mean? I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up a massive encrypted drive. This is the leverage I've spent 5 years collecting. Proof of Evelyn manipulating the board, illegally transferring funds into shell accounts. It might not be enough to send her to federal prison, but it is enough to trigger an SEC investigation and crash Caldwell stock. Mia leaned in. You're going to use this to blackmail them into dropping the suit? No. I smiled. I'm going to use this to show them that I didn't come back to negotiate. I came back to destroy. 3 days later, Alex and I met at a court-appointed DNA testing facility in Midtown. He looked even worse, his eyes bloodshot as if he hadn't slept a wink. The kids were with me. Grace hid shyly behind my legs while Noah stood quietly staring at Alex. The procedure was quick. A technician swabbed the inside of the kid's cheeks and drew a vial of blood from Alex. Results will be ready in 5 to 7 business days, the tech said. As we walked out of the clinic, Alex called out to me. Lily? His voice was raw. If they are mine, we can start over. I stopped but didn't look back. Alex, in the real world, you don't get to hit reset. You just miss your chance. I know I was wrong. He quickly moved to block my path. These last 5 years, not a day has gone by that I haven't regretted it. I searched for you for 5 years. I waited for you. Waited for me? I let out a dry laugh. Waited for your mother to try and buy me off with another $5 million? I won't let my mother interfere anymore. He grabbed my wrist. Lily, give me a chance. Let me make it up to you and the kids. Make it up to us? I finally looked at him. How exactly do you plan to do that? Can you give me back the 5 years I lost? Can you reverse the fact that my children grew up without a father? Can you undo the sheer terror I felt when I almost bled to death on a delivery table? He froze. You had a difficult birth? Premature labor at 7 months. Severe hemorrhaging. 3 days in the ICU. I enunciated every word clearly. Where were you? At a charity gala with Vanessa Kensington? Or picking out your next strategic acquisition with your mother? His face went dead white. His grip on my wrist loosened until his hand fell to his side. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. I picked Grace up and took Noah's hand. Because I never mattered enough to you. Alex, stop playing the tragic, devoted hero. You just suddenly realized there are 2 people walking around with your DNA that you can't control. With that, I led the kids to the parking garage. This time he didn't follow. On the drive home, Grace asked quietly, Mommy, Daddy looked sad. I glanced at my daughter's concerned face in the rearview mirror. Gracie, some people only get sad when they realize they've lost something they owned. That's not real sadness. That's just a bruised ego, Noah spoke up. Mom, if the test says he's our dad, is he going to take us away? My knuckles went white on the steering wheel. No, I said fiercely. Mom will never let anyone take you away. 5 days later, the results came in. Alex, our respective lawyers, and I gathered at the clinic to receive the sealed envelopes. His lawyer aggressively tore his open, flipped to the final page, and his expression collapsed. Alex snatched the paper from him. He took one look and froze. The paper slipped from his fingers, fluttering to the linoleum floor. I leaned down and picked it up. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. biological father confirmed. I folded the report and looked at Alex. His eyes were red, his lips trembling. He wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Now you know. I handed the paper to his lawyer. They are your children. And that is the only thing you will ever get to know. I turned to leave. Lily! The gut-wrenching shout stopped me in my tracks. They are my kids. Mine. So what? I looked over my shoulder. Legally, you might win visitation rights if I allow it. But realistically, do you think they want a father who abandoned their mother? He looked as if his strings had been cut. He stumbled back, leaning heavily against the clinic wall to keep from collapsing. I was wrong, he whispered brokenly. I was so wrong. Mistakes carry a price. I gave him one last cold look. And this is yours. I walked out into the blinding New York sun. Pulling out my phone, I fired off a text to Mia. Green light. Execute. The war was officially on. The official U.S. launch presentation for Aura was set for Friday at 2 p.m. in the Grand Ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. Invitations had gone out a week prior. Media, Wall Street investors, industry partners, and even a few direct competitors. Everyone who needed to be there was there. Backstage in the green room, a makeup artist was doing final touch-ups. Mia, clipboard in hand, ran through the timeline one last time. First, your 5-minute keynote, then the brand sizzle reel, product demos, and then the contract signing. Chris Harrington's group is officially signing the partnership today. It's locked in. After that, press Q and A. She paused, lowering her voice. Alex Caldwell is out there. Sitting third row, right side. I adjusted my earring, staring at myself in the mirror. Is he alone? Just his assistant and his lawyer. Mia frowned. Lily, do you think he's going to make a scene? I hope he makes a scene. I smiled. It'd be worse if he didn't. The woman looking back at me in the mirror wore a razor-sharp white Alexander McQueen pantsuit, hair slicked back into a strict bun, perfect makeup, eyes like flint. The girl who used to hide in the corners of the Caldwell estate wearing modest dresses was dead and buried. At exactly 2 p.m., I walked out onto the stage. The spotlights hit me. The ballroom was packed. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Distinguished guests, members of the press, good afternoon. I am Lily Anderson, founder and CEO of the luxury maternal wellness brand, Aura. My opening speech was brief and punchy. I broke down Aura's philosophy, our proprietary tech integrations, and our aggressive expansion strategy for the U.S. market. The room ate it up, especially when I announced the exclusive partnership with Harrington Health. Applause echoed off the vaulted ceilings, the lights dimmed, and the promotional video played. High-end visuals flashed across the massive LED screen. Aura's flagship centers in Asia. Our medical teams. The state-of-the-art facilities, warm aesthetics, soothing music. It was going perfectly. When the video ended, the house lights came back up. I walked back to the center of the stage and took the microphone. Thank you. But today, beyond introducing our brand, I want to use this platform to make a personal statement. The ballroom went dead quiet. I looked directly at the third row, right side. Alex Caldwell sat there, his posture rigid, his heavy gaze fixed on me. 5 years ago, I fled this city, I began. My voice amplified clearly across the massive room. At the time, I was 5 months pregnant. I went alone to my routine ultrasound appointment at my clinic. And on that exact day, the television screen in the waiting room was broadcasting a live, spectacular wedding. The wedding of my husband, the CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, Alex Caldwell, and Hollywood actress Vanessa Kensington. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Camera lenses instantly swung away from me and locked onto Alex. His face turned an unnatural shade of gray. His fists clenched on his thighs. At that time, Mr. Caldwell and I were still legally married, I continued, my tone conversational, as if I were narrating a documentary. During my pregnancy, his mother, Evelyn Caldwell, repeatedly tried to force me to sign a divorce agreement and actively tried to coerce me into terminating the pregnancy. For the 5 years I was gone, I raised premature twins entirely on my own while building Aura from the ground up. I clicked a button on the remote in my hand. The massive screen behind me flickered. Security footage appeared. Blurry, but undeniable. The timestamp read exactly 5 years ago. The location: the VIP waiting room of a prominent Manhattan maternity clinic. On the screen, a younger, paler version of myself, heavily pregnant, clutched my stomach as I stared up at a wall-mounted TV. On that TV, Alex Caldwell and Vanessa Kensington were kissing at the altar. The clip was only 30 seconds long, but it was a nuke. Absolute chaos erupted in the ballroom. Reporters leaped out of their chairs, shouting questions, recording on their phones. Alex abruptly stood up. His lawyer grabbed his arm, trying to pull him down, but Alex shoved him off. "Lily." His voice was hoarse and raw, carrying over the noise. "Did you have to do this?" I stared him down and clicked the remote again. The screen changed. Scanned documents, lab reports, internal corporate emails, purchase orders. Red circles highlighted the damning data. Lead levels in Caldwell Baby's organic skincare line exceeding FDA limits. Falsified safety inspection dates. Batch numbers of toxic raw materials. Over the last 5 years, Caldwell Enterprises, heavily influenced by Evelyn Caldwell, has aggressively expanded into the childcare sector. My voice boomed over the speakers, each word a hammer strike. But in the pursuit of profit margins, they have repeatedly falsified safety data. These are the actual unedited lab reports for 3 batches of Caldwell Baby lotions. Lead toxicity is 30 times the legal limit. Through forged compliance documents, these products were cleared for retail. "This is slander," Alex's lawyer screamed, jumping up. "We will sue you for defamation. Be my guest." I looked right at him. "I have already forwarded the original files to the FDA, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and the Department of Justice. Oh, and one more thing." I clicked the remote a final time. A high-resolution scan of a bank check appeared on the screen. "This is a check for $5 million, offered to me just 5 days ago by Evelyn Caldwell. In exchange, she demanded that I take my children and disappear from this country forever. I refused, and I tore up the check. But bank traces don't tear." The ballroom exploded. Alex stood frozen, paralyzed by shock. He looked frantically from the screen to me, realization crashing over him. His mother had done this behind his back. He had no idea. I am not standing here today to play the victim or beg for sympathy. I lowered the remote and swept my gaze across the room. I am standing here to tell the world that a woman facing betrayal in her marriage and corruption in her industry does not have to stay silent. That a mother protecting her children can forge herself into a weapon. I looked directly at Alex. And that those who commit sins will eventually have to pay the bill. With that, I gave a deep, formal bow. For 5 agonizing seconds, there was absolute silence. Then a thunderous, deafening standing ovation ripped through the room. Mia rushed onto the stage, flanked by security, and escorted me toward the backstage exit. Reporters surged the stage like a tidal wave. "Miss Anderson, are you finalizing the divorce? Is the Caldwell Baby lead scandal verified? Are you pressing charges against Evelyn Caldwell?" I didn't answer a single question. Protected by the guards, we slipped out the back into the service corridor. The roar of the ballroom was muffled but still audible. Mia grabbed my shoulders, shaking with adrenaline. "Lily, did you see Alex's face? Oh my God, that was legendary." I leaned against the concrete wall and let out a long, shaky exhale. My hands were trembling. "Mia, where are the kids?" "Safe. My assistant has them at the penthouse with the security detail," she assured me. She checked her watch. "You can't go back there right now. The lobby will be swarming with paparazzi. Come to my place until the heat dies down." As soon as we pushed out the service doors into the alley, a black Bentley blocked our path. Alex was standing there. His suit jacket was gone. His tie was ripped off, collar open, his eyes bloodshot and manic. Seeing me, he took long, aggressive strides toward us. Mia tried to step in front of me, but I gently pushed her aside. "Lily." Alex stopped 3 feet away. His voice sounded like it was made of broken glass. "You can hate me. You can take your revenge on me. But why destroy the company? That was my father's life's work. I didn't destroy the company." I looked at him with zero pity. "Your mother did, and you did. If you had found the spine to say a single word 5 years ago, if you had told me the truth before you walked down that aisle, if you had acted like a man, a husband, and a father." I listed his failures one by one. "None of this would be happening today." He shook his head wildly. Tears. Actual tears. Something I had never, ever seen from this man. spilled over his lashes and tracked down his face. This arrogant, untouchable billionaire was crying in an alleyway. "I didn't know," he stammered, his voice breaking. "I swear to God, I didn't know what my mother did. I didn't know she harassed you. I didn't know the safety reports were faked." He reached out. "Lily, give me a chance to fix it. Please." "It's too late," I said softly. "The second you said I do at that altar, it was too late." I stepped around him and walked toward Mia's SUV. "Lily!" he screamed after me. "The kids! Just let me see the kids." My hand paused on the door handle. I didn't look back. "When the dust settles," I answered into the cool air. "If they want to see you." I got in, and Mia floored it. In the side mirror, I watched him shrinking in the distance, standing alone in the alley, a broken man. Mia spoke quietly. "Lily, do you have any regrets?" "No." I closed my eyes. "Mia, do you know how I survived those 5 years?" "I know." "No. You don't." I opened my eyes, watching the New York streets blur past. When I was hemorrhaging on the delivery table, the doctor asked me who to save, me or the babies. Right before I blacked out, I said, "The babies." When Noah was 3 months old, his fever spiked to 104 inches the middle of the night. I ran through a torrential monsoon in Singapore, holding him, trying to hail a cab. The ER doctor said it might be meningitis. I spent the entire night on my knees outside the ICU doors. My voice was steady, but tears were silently streaming down Mia's face. Then when I opened Aura, local competitors tried to crush me. They poached my clients. They started rumors that I slept my way to funding. I crawled through all of that blood and dirt to get to where I am today. I turned to look at her. I didn't survive all of that just so someone could say, "Oops, let me fix it." I came back to prove to the world that Lily Anderson doesn't need anyone's charity, and she doesn't need to be saved. Mia wiped her eyes and nodded fiercely. "You're damn right." My phone buzzed. It was Chris Harrington. "Lily." I saw the live stream. His tone was pure business, laced with awe. "That was a nuclear strike. The Caldwells will not take this lying down." "I know," I replied. "Do I need your help with legal or PR?" "Not yet," I said. "But I do have a favor to ask." "Go ahead." "Caldwell stock is going to freefall when the market opens Monday." I stared out the window. "I want you to use your brokers to quietly buy up all the dumped retail shares. As much as you can." Silence on the other end. "Lily, what are you planning?" "Taking back what I'm owed," I said quietly. "I left 5 years of my youth and my tears inside Caldwell Enterprises. It's time to collect the interest." When we finally made it to Mia's secure apartment, the kids were sitting on the plush rug in the living room, building a Lego castle. Seeing me walk in, Grace dropped her blocks and ran over, hugging my legs. "Mommy, we saw you on TV. You looked so pretty." Noah walked over and tilted his head up. "Mom, you look tired." I dropped to my knees and gathered them both into my arms. "I'm not tired." I kissed the tops of their heads. "Mommy just finished a very big, important job today." "What job?" I showed the bullies who hurt Mommy a long time ago that they aren't allowed to hurt people anymore. Noah thought about this seriously, then nodded. "Then Grace and I will be your bodyguards now." My eyes burned, but I smiled brightly. Deal. After putting the kids to bed, I opened my laptop in the guest room. The internet was on fire. Number Alex Caldwell bigamy. Number Caldwell baby toxic. Number Evelyn Caldwell bribe. Number Vanessa Kensington exposed. 6 out of the top 10 trending topics on X, formerly Twitter, were about my press conference. Caldwell Enterprises' corporate accounts were being flooded with tens of thousands of furious comments. Vanessa Kensington's Instagram was a war zone. Her latest sponsored post for Caldwell Baby had over 1 million comments calling her a homewrecker and a child poisoner. I closed the browser and opened an encrypted email account. There was a new message from an anonymous sender. Attached was an audio file titled Evidence. I put my AirPods in and hit play. First, background noise, the clinking of silverware like a high-end restaurant, then the unmistakable voice of Vanessa Kensington. "Evelyn, don't worry. It's all handled. I paid off your driver, George. He's going to snap photos of Lily having coffee with that college friend of hers. He knows how to angle the camera to make it look like they're kissing. Good. Evelyn Caldwell's icy, arrogant voice cut through. Make it flawless. Lily is not elite enough for this family. Alex needs to marry you to secure the Harrington merger. I know, Evelyn. Once Alex and I are married, I'll make sure you're well taken care of. The recording clicked off. I downloaded the file and replied with a single word, received. Outside the window, New York was dark, but the skyline glittered relentlessly. Tomorrow, some people's worlds were going to shatter, and I was going to enjoy the show. Saturday, 8 a.m. My phone ringing woke me up. It was Mia, her voice trembling with excitement. Lily, check the news. Vanessa is the #1 trend. Still groggy, I unlocked my phone. Number Vanessa Kensington audio leak. Number Evelyn Caldwell framed daughter-in-law. Number Caldwell stock pre-market crash. I clicked the top link. A brand new burner account had posted a long thread. 5 years ago, I was Vanessa Kensington's personal assistant. Today I am telling the truth. Below it was the audio file I had received last night. In 1 hour, it had millions of views. The comments were absolute vitriol. Oh my God, a literal smoking gun. Vanessa and the mother-in-law conspired to frame the wife for cheating, and the wife was pregnant at the time. Sick! Is Alex Caldwell blind? He married a viper. Evelyn Caldwell belongs in prison. I scrolled down. More headlines. Major brands drop Vanessa Kensington. DOJ opens probe into Caldwell baby. Caldwell Enterprises issues statement. I clicked the corporate statement. It was standard, soulless PR garbage. Denies allegations. Claims audio is doctored. Fully cooperating with authorities. Operations running normally. Threatens legal action. Nobody bought it. The top reply was, "Are you suing yourselves?" I locked the phone and went to wash my face. The kids were already awake, sitting at the kitchen island eating pancakes Mia had whipped up. Noah pointed at the flat-screen TV on the wall. "Mom, you're on the news again." I looked up. CNN was covering the fallout. Live helicopter footage showed a massive crowd protesting outside Caldwell Enterprises headquarters in Manhattan. Furious parents held signs. Poison peddlers and jail Evelyn. Riot police were setting up barricades. I watched the chaos with absolute, chilling calm. Mia walked over with a mug of black coffee. "Evelyn is in the hospital," she said quietly. "Heart attack. Rushed to Mount Sinai in the middle of the night. Alex is with her." Mia sneered. "Karma." I said nothing. I walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Thick, dark clouds hung low over the city. A storm was rolling in. At 10 a.m., Chris called. "Lily, Caldwell stock is down 20% in pre-market trading. As you requested, I've had my brokers quietly scoop up 3% of the dumped retail shares." He paused. "But I don't get it. 3% doesn't even get you a board seat." "Not getting one now doesn't mean I won't get one later," I said. "Keep buying, Chris, as much as you can. If you run out of capital, let me know." "Where are you getting this kind of liquidity?" "I haven't just been playing house these past 5 years," I said softly. "And I have an outstanding invoice with Evelyn Caldwell to settle." Silence on the line. "Lily." Know when to fold. The Caldwells are bleeding, but they are a massive conglomerate. They won't sink overnight. If you corner a dying animal, it bites. "I know," I said. "But I've waited 5 years for this bite." I hung up, changed into a sharp blazer, and looked at Mia. "Watch the kids. I need to run an errand." "Where?" "Mount Sinai. The VIP cardiology wing at Mount Sinai." When I stepped off the elevator, 6 Caldwell security guards were stationed in the hall. Seeing me, they stiffened and moved to block my path. But my own private security, 2 massive ex-military contractors Mia had hired, stepped in front of me. "Step aside," I commanded. They hesitated, glancing at each other, but ultimately parted. I walked to the last suite in the hall and pushed the heavy oak door open. Evelyn Caldwell lay in a hospital bed, an IV drip in her arm. Her face was gray, but her eyes were still sharp as daggers. Alex was sitting in a chair by the bed, his back to the door. Hearing it open, he stood up and spun around. "Lily, why are you here?" "To visit the sick." I walked in and placed a pristine fruit basket on the bedside table. She did offer me $5 million, after all. Even if I didn't take it, it's the thought that counts. Evelyn glared at me, her chest heaving with labored breaths. You dare show your face here? Why wouldn't I? I pulled up a chair and sat down, crossing my legs. Evelyn, did you happen to hear that audio recording trending online? Her face turned a shade paler. It's a deep fake. Slander. I will destroy you in court. Court? I laughed out loud. You should be more worried about how you're going to explain the falsified FDA reports to the DOJ. Oh, and the embezzlement. You thought you cleaned the paper trail, but I have copies of every offshore wire transfer. Evelyn's pupils dilated in sheer panic. Where? How did you? How did I get the ledgers? I finished her sentence. Because your most trusted CFO, Mr. Davis. His son got into a little bit of legal trouble in Asia last year. I pulled some strings and helped him out. Out of gratitude, he gave me some very interesting bedtime reading. Alex stared at me in horror, then slowly turned to his mother. Mom, embezzlement? Is it true? Evelyn's lips trembled, but no words came out. It seems Mr. Caldwell is out of the loop. I stood up. Allow me to fill you in. Over the last 5 years, your mother siphoned off at least $80 million from Caldwell corporate accounts under the guise of shell consulting fees. $30 million went to buying Vanessa's leading roles in Hollywood. $20 million went to funding a failed tech startup for her nephew. The rest. I assume it pays for luxury suites like this one. Mom! Alex's voice cracked. Is it true? Evelyn squeezed her eyes shut, and 2 tears leaked out. It was a confession. Alex stumbled back, catching himself on the windowsill. He looked as if all the bones had been removed from his body. I watched him without a single drop of pity. Do you understand now, Alex? I said quietly. Your so-called family legacy. Your so-called obligations. It was all an intricately woven lie. Your mother, just to maintain absolute control of the board and force you into a merger marriage, was willing to poison children and steal from her own company. And you, I paused. You were just her compliant little puppet. No. He shook his head weakly. That's not true. Whether it is or isn't, you have to live with it. I walked to the door, stopping with my hand on the knob. I didn't look back. My lawyers have filed the motion to force the divorce. The hearing is Monday morning. As for the children, when the dust settles, if they actually want to see you, I will arrange supervised visits. On one condition. You and your mother never, ever step foot into my private life again. I walked out and let the heavy door click shut, trapping Evelyn's muffled sobs and Alex's broken questions inside. It wasn't my problem anymore. Riding the elevator down, my phone buzzed. It was Mia. Lily, check the news. Vanessa is doing an impromptu press conference. I pulled up the live stream on YouTube. Vanessa, wearing zero makeup, her hair messy, and her eyes swollen, was sobbing in front of a podium of microphones. I was forced. Evelyn Caldwell threatened me. She said if I didn't seduce Alex, she would use her studio connections to blacklist me from Hollywood. I love Alex. I really do. Evelyn orchestrated everything. I'm just a victim. The reporters in the room smelled blood and started yelling over each other. Miss Kensington, you claim you were forced, but you knew Alex Caldwell was married with a pregnant wife. You didn't sound like a victim on that audio tape. Are you just throwing Evelyn under the bus to save your endorsements? Do you have no shame? Vanessa just sobbed hysterically, shaking her head, unable to form a coherent sentence. Her publicist quickly killed the feed. I locked my phone screen, spiders in a jar, eating each other. When I walked out of the hospital, it had started to rain. I stood under the awning, watching the heavy drops turn the New York skyline into a gray blur. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down. It was Chris Harrington. Get in, he said. I'll give you a ride. I didn't refuse. The interior of the car was warm. Chris handed me a paper cup of hot coffee. Warm up? Thanks. The SUV merged into the wet traffic. The windshield wipers beat a steady, rhythmic pulse. The city outside was a watercolor painting of gray and neon. What are your next steps? Chris asked, keeping his eyes on the road. Wait for the judge's ruling on the divorce, I said, taking a sip of the bitter coffee. Then just live my life. Raise my kids and the company. The shares? Keep them parked, I said. Caldwell Enterprises took a massive hit, but give it 3 to 5 years and they'll bounce back. Their infrastructure is too big to fail. If Alex survives this PR nightmare, he might actually rebuild it. Do you want him to rebuild it? I stared out the rain-streaked window and said nothing. Did I? I didn't know. 5 years of hatred, plotting, and revenge had fueled me. The satisfaction of the execution was real, but the empty void in my chest hadn't magically filled up. Maybe there are some wounds that even time and vengeance can't heal. You just learn to carry the scar. The SUV pulled up to my Tribeca building. Lily, Chris called out before I opened the door. If, and I'm just saying if, you ever want to explore a new relationship, would you consider looking at the people who are already standing right next to you? I turned to look at him. The tips of his ears were slightly red, but his gaze was steady and serious. Chris, I said gently. Right now, all I want to do is raise Noah and Grace. I don't have the space for anything else. He nodded, a soft, understanding smile on his face. Fair enough. Then I'll just be first in line when you do. I stepped out into the rain. He didn't drive away immediately. He waited until I was safely inside the lobby before the SUV slowly pulled away. In the elevator, I looked at my wet reflection in the mirror. My eyes were exhausted, but beneath the fatigue, there was an undeniable sense of relief. The 5-year war was finally ending. When I unlocked my front door, the kids came sprinting down the hall. Mommy, you're all wet, Grace scolded, putting her hands on her hips. Change your clothes or you'll get a cold. I laughed, kneeling down to hug them both, planting kisses on their cheeks. Yes, ma'am, Mommy will go change, and then we can build a fort in the living room. Yay! In my bedroom, I changed into dry loungewear and walked over to the window. The rain was still coming down, turning the city into a misty dreamscape. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. A new text from an unsaved number. I will sign everything at the hearing on Monday. When the kids are ready to see me, tell them I'm sorry, and thank you for raising them so beautifully. It was Alex. I stared at the message for a long time, and I didn't reply. Some apologies arrive a lifetime too late. Some sins I hadn't learned how to forgive yet. But maybe, eventually, time would provide the answer. Outside, the rain was slowly tapering off. On the horizon, over the Hudson River, a thin, brilliant sliver of golden sunlight broke through the clouds. Monday morning, Manhattan Family Court. The courtroom was packed. Mia, Chris, and a few friendly journalists sat in the gallery. Evelyn didn't show up. Word was, she had been transferred to a long-term care facility in Switzerland. Alex sat at the respondent's table in a sharp black suit. His face was gaunt, but his spine was perfectly straight. Next to him sat his attorney, looking overwhelmed by a mountain of files. The judge called the court to order. My attorney stood up. Your Honor, my client, Lily Anderson, and the respondent, Alex Caldwell, were legally married 8 years ago. 5 years ago, the respondent orchestrated a highly publicized wedding ceremony with another woman and has lived separately from my client since. The marriage is irretrievably broken. My client signed a separation agreement 5 years ago, which the respondent refused to execute. We petitioned the court for an absolute decree of divorce, full legal and physical custody of the 2 minor children to Miss Anderson, mandated child support, and the revocation of the respondent's visitation rights. Alex's attorney immediately stood up. Your Honor, my client concedes fault in the breakdown of the marriage. However, we vehemently contest the revocation of visitation rights. The children are his biological offspring, and my client has a fundamental right to be in their lives. Your Honor, I raised my hand. May I speak? The judge looked at me over his glasses and nodded. I stood up and looked directly at Alex. Alex Caldwell, I have one question for you. 5 years ago, on the day I was 5 months pregnant and went alone to the clinic for my ultrasound, where were you? The courtroom went dead silent. Alex's lips parted. His voice came out dry as dust. Preparing for my wedding. A wedding to whom? Vanessa Kensington. And at that time, were we still legally married? Yes. Then tell me. I kept my eyes locked on his. Does a husband who throws a multi-million-dollar wedding with another woman while his wife is carrying his children have the right to stand in a courtroom and demand the privileges of a father? Alex's face was chalk white. He couldn't force a single word out. His lawyer opened his mouth to object, but the judge held up a hand. "Respondent, answer the question," the judge said sternly. Alex stared at the polished wood of his desk for a long, agonizing minute. Finally, he looked up, his voice cracking. "I do not have that right, Your Honor." I turned to the judge. "For the past 5 years, I have raised twins entirely on my own. Mr. Caldwell has not contributed a single dollar or a single minute of his time. Furthermore, during my pregnancy, his mother attempted to bribe me to disappear and pressured me to terminate the pregnancy. I do not believe a man who enables that behavior has any place in my children's lives." The judge frowned, flipping through the thick dossier of evidence. Suddenly, Alex stood up. "Your Honor, I withdraw all contestations." His lawyer whipped around, horrified. "Mr. Caldwell, what are you doing?" "I consent to the divorce." Alex looked at me, his eyes bloodshot and wet. "I consent to full legal and physical custody being awarded to Lily. I waive all rights to visitation." A collective gasp echoed through the gallery. The judge banged his gavel. "Order! Mr. Caldwell, are you absolutely certain?" "I am certain." Alex's voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. "I owe her a debt I can never repay. This is the only thing I have left to give her." The ruling was swift. Divorce granted. Full custody to me. Alex was ordered to pay maximum child support until the children turned 18. As for visitation, since he voluntarily surrendered it, the court honored his request. When I walked out of the courthouse, the New York sun was blindingly bright. Mia ran down the marble steps and tackled me in a hug. "Lily, we won! We actually won!" I smiled, patting her back. "Yeah, we won." Chris walked over, a soft smile on his handsome face. "Congratulations." "Thank you, Chris." As we were talking, the heavy brass doors of the courthouse opened and Alex walked out. He stood at the top of the steps, looking down at me. He wanted to say something but hesitated. Mia immediately stepped in front of me, glaring. "What else do you want?" Alex shook his head. He reached into the inner breast pocket of his suit, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and held it out to me. "This is for you. I didn't take it." "What is it?" "The finalized divorce decree," he said hoarsely, "with my signature, and a legal transfer of 5% of Caldwell Enterprises voting stock from my personal holdings, for you and the kids." I froze. "Don't reject it." He gently pressed the envelope into my hand. "You and the kids deserve it, Lily. I am so sorry. And thank you for raising them so well." He turned and started walking down the steps toward his waiting car. "Alex," I called out. He stopped but didn't turn around. "The kids," I paused, taking a breath. "If you truly want to see them, you can. But only supervised by me. And only if they agree to it." I saw his broad shoulders tremble slightly beneath his suit. He stood there for a long time before finally nodding. "Okay." He descended the rest of the steps, got into his black Bentley, and drove away into the Manhattan traffic. Mia looked at the heavy envelope in my hand. "Lily, are you really going to take that?" "I am." I slid the envelope into my designer tote. It's what he owes his children. That evening, I cooked a massive feast at the penthouse to celebrate the start of our new life. Noah and Grace were in high spirits, chattering endlessly about their day at preschool. After dinner, I tucked them into bed and read them a story. Grace suddenly looked up. "Mommy, is Daddy ever coming to visit?" I stroked her soft hair. "If you guys want to see him, Mommy will set it up. But you have to remember, whether Daddy is here or not, Mommy will always love you." Noah shifted under the covers and leaned against my arm. "Mom," he said quietly, "I think I want to see him." My heart softened. "Why is that?" Because he looked really sad. Noah looked up at me with those serious, impossibly old eyes. "And he's my dad." I pulled him into a tight hug. "Okay, Mommy will set it up." A week later, I brought the twins to a high-end indoor playground in Chelsea. Alex was already there waiting. He was dressed in casual jeans and a sweater, holding two massive plush bears. He looked as nervous as a teenager on a first date. Seeing us approach, he instantly stood up. Noah. Grace. He dropped to one knee to be at eye level with them. I'm your dad. Grace inspected him curiously. Noah just nodded. We know. Alex's eyes filled with tears. These are for you. He held out the bears. Grace took hers and smiled sweetly. Thank you, Daddy. Noah took his but didn't say anything. The visit was short, only an hour. Alex pushed them on the swings, shadowed them through the climbing tubes, and bought them organic ice cream. He was incredibly restrained, overly cautious, terrified of doing or saying the wrong thing. When it was time to leave, Grace surprised us all by running up and hugging his leg. Daddy, can we play again next time? The tears Alex had been fighting finally spilled over, tracking down his face. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Noah walked up to him, extended his little hand, and shook Alex's massive one. Goodbye. On the ride home, Grace asked, Mommy, is Daddy a good person? I thought about it for a long time. People aren't just good or bad, Gracie. He made some terrible mistakes, and he hurt Mommy a long time ago. But he's trying very hard to be better. You guys can get to know him slowly and decide for yourselves. Noah nodded firmly from his car seat. I understand. Time marched on. Aura exploded in the U.S. market, becoming the gold standard for luxury postnatal care. The partnership with Chris Harrington's healthcare group was highly lucrative. Caldwell Enterprises, battered by the scandals and federal probes, struggled to stay afloat. Alex stepped down as CEO, handing the reins to an outside crisis manager. Evelyn Caldwell remained in an exclusive clinic in Switzerland and never meddled in corporate affairs again. Vanessa Kensington became a Hollywood pariah, dropped by her agency, and faded into obscurity. It seemed the dust had finally settled. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn Saturday, Alex called me. Lily. His voice sounded strangely light. I'm on the roof of the Caldwell building. Can you come? I have something I need to give you in person. I frowned. Give me what? You'll see when you get here, he said. It's just me. Nobody else. I looked over at Noah and Grace, who were fast asleep, taking their afternoon nap. After a moment of hesitation, I agreed. Fine. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The rooftop of the Caldwell Enterprises skyscraper. When I pushed open the heavy metal door, Alex was standing by the edge, his back to me, looking out over the sprawling concrete jungle of New York City. The autumn wind whipped his hair around. You came. He didn't turn around. What did you want to give me? I walked up, stopping a safe 3 feet behind him. He turned around. In his hands was a thick, leather-bound legal folio. This is another 8% of Caldwell Enterprises voting stock. He held it out to me. Combined with the 5% I gave you at the courthouse, that makes 13%. You are now the third largest shareholder in the company. I didn't take it. What is the meaning of this? It's the last thing I can give you. He looked at me, his gaze incredibly calm, devoid of the manic desperation from months ago. Lily, I'm leaving. Leaving to where? He smiled a sad, exhausted smile that held a strange sense of liberation. I'm entirely divested from the company. My mother is in Switzerland. There is nothing left for me in this city. Nothing tying me here, except you and the kids. I stayed silent. Before I go, I want to make sure you have what you're owed. He stepped forward and gently pressed the heavy folio into my hands. These shares yield enough dividends that you and the twins will never, ever have to worry about money for the rest of your lives. Even if Aura goes under tomorrow, you have an ironclad safety net. I don't need this. You do, he interrupted softly. Lily, I know you are strong. I know you've built an empire on your own. And you don't need my money, but this is the absolute last thing I can do for my children as their father. Take it. Consider it my parting gift. I looked down at the heavy leather folder in my hands. When is your flight? Tomorrow. He looked out at the skyline again. Morning flight to Europe. Do the kids know? No. He shook his head. Don't tell them. Once I'm settled, I'll FaceTime them. A heavy silence fell over the rooftop, broken only by the whistling wind rushing between the skyscrapers. Finally, Alex spoke again. Lily, Can I ask you one last question? Ask. If my mother hadn't done what she did, if that wedding had never happened, did we ever have a real chance? I looked at him, at this man whom I had once loved with my whole heart, then hated with every fiber of my being, and finally let go. Alex, there are no ifs in life, I said softly. It's time for both of us to move on. He froze, processing the words, and then slowly smiled. Yes, time to move on. He held out his hand. Let's shake hands one last time. I wish you and the kids nothing but happiness. I reached out and grasped his cold hand. Take care of yourself, Alex. I let go of his hand, turned, and started walking back toward the roof access door. Lily! He yelled over the wind. I stopped and looked back. He was standing near the edge of the roof, the wind whipping his coat wildly around him. Against the massive backdrop of the city, he looked incredibly fragile, as if a strong gust could just blow him away into nothing. I am sorry, he shouted. And thank you for loving me once. My nose burned, but I forced the tears back. Goodbye, Alex. I walked through the door and let it slam shut behind me. As the elevator began its long descent, I stared at my reflection in the mirrored walls. The tears finally spilled over. I wasn't crying for him. I was crying for the love that died 5 years ago, for the naive, foolish girl I used to be, for all the suffering, the grit, and the relentless fight of the last 5 years. But as I cried, I realized something. That cold, empty void that had lived inside my chest for so long was finally gone. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was simply closure. It was enough. Let it be. When I unlocked the door to my penthouse, the afternoon sun was streaming through the windows. The kids were awake, playing on the rug. Grace jumped up and ran to me, wrapping her arms around my legs. Mommy, why are your eyes red? I knelt down and pulled her and Noah into a massive, crushing hug. Mommy is just really, really happy. Why are you happy? Because I have you too. I kissed their chubby cheeks, breathing in the scent of them. With you guys, Mommy is the happiest person in the whole wide world. Noah looked at me seriously and patted my shoulder. We are the happiest too. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the sun was dipping below the New York skyline, painting the clouds in brilliant, warm shades of gold and orange. The past was finally behind me. A new life had begun.